So, hello everybody. Today I will be speaking to you about the attacks on Active Directory that are based on the misconfigurations in this environment. That's like most of the attacks in Active Directory. Let me introduce myself. I'm Matej Janček. I was Active Directory penetration tester for 4 years. I test various environments, various clients in those 4 years. And in all of those environments were the same vulnerabilities or attacks, like repeating. And there's like the most common vulnerabilities I chose, and I'll be speaking to you today about it. I'm also an occasional CTF player, so if anybody is from the testnet, I would like to have some hints for the next week. And I can say that I'm an ethical hacker. I'm interested in all the various wireless stuff, like the Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or the access cards. Physical pen test, that's from the access cards, or lockpicking, or any social engineering. And I would say I'm also a coffee nerd, or some people would say about me that I'm a coffee nerd because, for example, I am mixing my own water with the minerals and everything to make my own coffee at the home. So, at first, I will be speaking about some really quick introduction of Active Directory. So everybody knows I have some basics in that. That's important for this talk. After that, I will say something about our threat model and the 3 most common vulnerabilities I encountered. First one, Kerberos roasting. Second one is LSA spoofing, and the pair of 2 attacks on the Active Directory certificate services. That's ESC1 and ESC8. So first, the introduction of Active Directory. It is a complex service, I would say, that's like the backbone of organization, identity, and access. It keeps a list of all the users, machine, groups, and policies of the whole organization, network, and access list, who it's dealing with the authentication, like who are you, and authorization, like what you can do in the network and all the resources in the network. It also stores the secrets, like passwords, keys, tokens, everything that Windows you use on the Windows every day. Under the hood, there are 2 things that will be interesting to us in this talk. First one is Kerberos. Kerberos is authentication protocol in Active Directory, but one of the more protocols. I would say is the better one as the other. And it issues tickets that are used to authenticate clients to services without sending plain passwords to services. Those services have SPNs. That's like some special identifier that Kerberos keeps, and it maps those services to the account in the domain. So just Kerberos needs to know what account is that. You just have the SPN, and that's all what you have to deal with. Second thing is the Active Directory certificate service. That is like the organization PKI. Simply put, it issues certificates for machines, users, and services, also to authenticate, I would say. It issues certificates, and it has its own templates. Those templates have some most common used rules, permissions, and all the details that will have the final certificate. So that you don't need to specify it each time. In these certificate services, there are the 2 attacks that are completely only on the misconfiguration. this is like a really simplified view of the Active Directory. You can see it has a main domain that is like all, like in the domain you have everything at the domain. And the domain consists of policies, users, workstations, servers, and special policies for the workstation servers that's some group policies, file shares, and all other stuff. Like this is really simplified view, but just to have some idea what's everything there. Our threat model today is that we will have, like today we are the attackers. We will have access to some user, to have some credentials to domain user, like any user, even some low privilege user. Or we have some local code execution on a machine, because usually when you have a local code execution on the machine, we usually have the code running under some account. Our goal would be escalate to domain admin. That's like the highest user account in the domain that can do anything. Have some persistence for the domain admin, or just to have persistence in the domain, or impersonate some services, accounts, anything. It depends what is your goal in the network. Like when you want to encrypt the whole network, you need just the domain admin user, for example. You don't need any persistence, because you will do it once. So let's start with the first attack, is Kerberos thing. It is tied to the Kerberos, as I mentioned before. It's probably because whole Kerberos would get roasted. And it consists of 3 steps. We will be enumerating the SPNs, as I mentioned, of the service principal names that are mapping the service to the account. But we will be enumerating only those that are tied to the user accounts, usually, because admin said it like that, and those user accounts have different passwords policies that I will be talking about later. When we have those special SPNs, that usually in most of the networks or most of the environments I met, they have some. We'll be requesting their service tickets for the Kerberos, and from these service tickets, we'll be extracting one part that's encrypted with the service account password, or some also key derived from the service account password. Usually there are 2 types. Like the most common is that is encrypted just with the NT hash. It's really, really weak hash, and it's used most of the time. Other one is with the password and salt, and that's when the AES encryption is used. But what I've seen, it's not so common. Here you can see how easy it is to do some Kerberos thing attack. There's really nice tools for everything in the Active Directory from the community. First, we will be using a script getUserSPNs. That's from the Impacket family of tools. And it will output us to the file all the SPNs that we are interested in a format that is ready to put directly to the hashcat. As you can see, to output those SPNs, we need user credentials, any user in the domain. And this output can be run with the hashcat, with this special mode. That's for the NT hash, or when here is used the NT hash, and it is really, really fast. Like that's why I included the rules and the word list, because like with any most common password with some words, numbers, and maybe even the special character, I would say, can be correct in few minutes. And that's what most of the time happens, as I've seen. What can you do to mitigate this? There's few things you can do. Let's start with why it's happening. So it's, as I mentioned, it's happening because administrators are using those services with the wrong service account or wrong account type. They are using it with the user account. That's some default user account that every user has, like their own account to the computer. It's almost the same as the domain account. And they shouldn't be using that. They should be using the service account type. That's some special account on them tied directly to the machine. There's randomly generated password and is rotated every 30 days by default. Admins are not using it because of, like, I cannot say why. Maybe you can say why admins are not using it. I've never set up ADA, but it's happening often. Second problem, like even if it's tied to this the basic user account, the problem is password. When this account would have strong password, we won't be able to crack it. But usually, most of the times, it's the problem. They're using really, really weak password, even for their own admin accounts. So when you don't want to use the special or the special normal service account, you can use group managed service account that was introduced to help admins with dealing all the services that has special needs. Like for example, this group managed service account can be tied to multiple services, and it can be tied also to multiple machines. So that should deal with some problems admins have before. Last year, Microsoft introduced a new type of service accounts. It's delegated managed service accounts. I don't know what exactly or what everything is different there. I only read on the Microsoft webpage that it includes a direct migration from the service account to the delegated managed service account. It's nice, yeah. But it's like a little bit futuristic, I would say, in the Active Directory, because usually I see really old stuff in the Active Directory. It's nothing new like last year feature. We can move to the second attack, that is LSA spoofing. LSA is Local Security Authority. That is part of the Windows, not directly Active Directory, but I included it here because it's really common and it's part of the multiple Active Directory attacks, like chain attacks. So this LSA, Local Security Authority, holds credentials and tokens on the machine, all the users that signed to that machine. But domain controller, that's like the main server from in the Active Directory, holds all the secrets of the domain. That's where it gets interesting. So, as I mentioned, it's inside every Windows machine. And the spoofing. LSA also has some RPC endpoints that helps to run some remote managed services and all other stuff. I don't know a lot about it, but those are accessible from the internet or from the outside remotely. And that's when it gets interesting, because there's a lot of endpoints, and some of them has some weaknesses or bugs, you can say. Here I put an image of Petit Potam attack. That's like one of the most common, I would say, that are using LSA spoofing as a part of it. It's this part. As you can see, the attacker is communicating to domain controller because he wants all the secrets of the domain, and are sending requests to EFSRPC. That's a special RPC endpoint that deals with encrypted files. DC happily start authentication to the attacker. Like we are just not. We are just nicely asking the DC to start authentication to us. That's like normal flow to the DC and to all the usually also to some antiviruses or stuff like that. An attacker, in this case, with the petit potam, is relaying this to the Active Directory certificate services, the negotiation and back challenge, and DC happily just send authentication, and attacker just send it to the certificate service, and it continues. Continues to getting access to everything. But I will get back to it in the next attack. It's important to say that LSA spoofing is like the family of attacks. It's not just the one. Like I said, petit potam is one, like really popular that is using this vulnerability. And usually you need a domain user to spoof LSA or to have a fully functional exploit with LSA spoofing, but some of those exploits don't need even the domain user. And how you can mitigate LSA spoofing? This is not so straightforward as the Kerberos thing. I think you can or you should have enabled LSA protection and credential guard. Like the LSA protection is taking care of the process of LSA, like it's isolating it from the Windows or other services and stuff like that. And credential guard also isolates other secrets from the other processes in the operating system. And together it makes LSA spoofing harder, I would say. Other way is, or other solution would be to disable NTLM authentication and use Kerberos authentication, and that would be nice if there would be no NTLM authentication in Windows or Active Directory. Nice for the admins, but they cannot do it because there's as I mentioned, it's a huge environment. There's a lot of old stuff that rely on NTLM, so they have to keep it running. But you can disable NTLM authentication on different parts of the Active Directory. For example, you can disable it on the domain controller or other services that are important and don't need NTLM authentication. Yeah, and I hope after that it will be safe and from LSA spoofing. I am not sure about that. And the last two attacks aimed on the Active Directory certificate service is like ESC1 and ESC2, as I mentioned. Those certificate services consist of the certificate authority, certificate templates, and enrollment endpoints, and all other stuff. But those three parts are important to us in those two attacks. Certificate authority is like the main server for the certificate services. This server holds the templates, as I mentioned. There are some rules to pre-configured rules for the certificate and enrolling those certificates, like who can enroll this certificate, how they can enroll this certificate, what they need, like some approval of the manager or some signatures. Even if the enrollment endpoints are enabled, like you can have HTTP server enabled, that is like a regular website where you can authenticate with NTLM or Kerberos. And all these attacks in certificate services are based on the misconfigurations. Like admins have really weak permissions there, or like maybe they don't know each of those rules. But even attackers didn't know about this service. Only recently, like I think 4 years ago, right now I cannot remember the name of the company, but they made a huge research on this service, and they found out, like at the beginning, 8 escalation methods. Right now there's like 15, 16, and they published really great white paper, like over 100 pages, and that's a really great resource if you want to learn about attacking certificate services or even defending. Let's move to the first one. That's ESC1. ESC1 stands for escalation. That's the category of this attacks on certificate service, that we are escalating from any low privilege user to the best case scenario, domain admin. And this specific one, ESC1, is the worst for the admins and best for us attackers, because it has really, really weak permission to enroll this certificate, because you can tell this service who you want to be. You can supply your own subject name. That's used for authentication in Active Directory. Definitely there is a reason to have these settings, but it's really, really, really vulnerable if you have some attacker in your network. Also, other stuff, it has to be allowed to enroll this certificate for low privilege user or user you are holding right now. There should be no manager approval for requesting this certificate. It means that some admin has to approve manually, usually, this request, but it still can be done with some social engineering or just brute forcing him. Here is the output, if you can see, from a really nice tool, Certipy, that's used to, I'd say, hacking these certificate services. And here you can see, as you will get information about certificate authority. Right now, we don't mind about that because I'm not speaking about vulnerabilities of it, but certificate templates. This one specifically is vulnerable to ESC1 because, like, most importantly, it's enabled. Yeah? You cannot exploit disabled template. Manager approval is disabled. Signatures are disabled, and you can supply your own subject. As I mentioned, it's that where you can tell, I want to be administrator. And also the template is enrollable for all authenticated users in this domain. There's a domain from Hack the Box if you want to have some hint on this machine. And here you can see comments that will get us this output you've seen. This is from the first one, enumeration of certificate authority and its templates. This is really great tool. You can exploit any, I think almost any those exploits in the certificate service. You can find with any domain user, specify the DC IP, like domain controller, or the certificate service if it is different IP, and you can specify also the vulnerable argument that will output you only the vulnerable templates. There you can find if any template is vulnerable, if some of them are vulnerable to ESC1, as you've seen before. You have to run this long command, and you will be almost done here. So I would say pretty easy to get a domain admin from regular user. You can see you just also get the same information as before, your user account, DCIP target of the certificate authority, like its name and its domain name, the vulnerable template, and UPN, that's the user you want to authenticate as. And from this, you will get certificate from certificate services. And the certificate can be used to get your ticket that's easier to use, or even NTLM hash of the user, and crack it or use it later. And how you can mitigate this or prevent this? Logically, you have to change settings of this template to have it more resilient. And of course, as everything in administrating computers, it depends on your needs. Probably that's why some admins have these weak permissions there. But you can enable manager approval. It is something, but I don't think it will deal with all this attack, because manager can, or the admin can approve it by incident, or they can be persuaded to do it. The most important will be, I think, disabling the supplied subject name. Like the user or the requester cannot put their own subject name to the certificate, only its own. And if you cannot do this, you can disable enrolling this template or certificate to the domain users, like to regular domain user. You can create one specific group and put on users only that needs this privilege. Like it should be like, because to have it accessible to everybody is really, really weak. And ESC8, the second attack on certificate service, is based on the web enrollment service that is enabled on the certificate authority. This can be HTTP as by default, which is really nice because the authentication is done with the headers, and HTTPS also, but what I've seen is not so common. And authentication can be done with the NTLM or Kerberos. Usually it has both, I would say, but you can still choose. So everybody will choose NTLM because it's easier to hack this. And with ESC8, you'll be using some family of printer bugs, as they're called. As I shown before, is the petit potam attack, where you are exploiting printer spool service on Windows. And the interesting thing on this is that if this service is running on Windows machine, you can spoof this LSA and relay its credential to anywhere, but most especially to the certificate service where you want to authenticate as that machine. In best case scenario, we want to authenticate as a domain controller, like the main server in the Active Directory. And again, it can be done only with 2 commands, as all attacks I mentioned. First, you have to do some relaying on your machine. So you'll be relaying all the NTLM authentication to your host, to some other to the certificate authority server, and this one specifically, this certify relay will relay it to the web enrollment service that is running on the server. And secondly, you want to force the computer to authenticate to you with the petit potam. It will be exploiting this RPC endpoint and authenticating to you. Again, for this, you need only user credentials, any user credentials, where you specify the target and no, this is your IP address, and the second one is the DC you want to target. It's the same thing as before. From this, or like from this pair of commands, you will get certificate, which one can be used to get a ticket for authentication or even NTLM hash. That again will be cracked in few minutes. And what to do to mitigate ESC8. Again, like it will be nice to disable web enrollment authentication, this web endpoint. Maybe you don't want to disable it, so at least use HTTPS on this endpoint and disable NTLM authentication there. That will make a huge difference, but still nobody is doing that. I think I've seen one secure web enrollment authentication in the Active Directory in those 4 years. Yeah, it's still like, so there's no really solution to this. You should try to, or I think there's no solution to this for the ESC8. You should secure your computers to prevent LSA spoofing or coercing the authentication to you, and that will stop this attack in the first step. And why all of these attacks keep happening? Like Active Directory has a huge amount of attacks that based on the misconfiguration of the whole network. It is, I think, because Active Directory is really old. Like Active Directory is probably every time, most of the time younger than the interns at your company, because it was introduced in 2000, and it keeps still adding new stuff, new features, and supporting the old features. Other thing, as this is old service, usually there are really old setup configurations, like that was set up years ago, like 10 years and even 15 years ago, and nobody wants to change it because it's risky. You can shut down whole organizational network when the Active Directory would stop working, and no admin probably wants to do that. And the Active Directory certificate service, as I mentioned, wasn't so popular in eyes of the attackers a few years ago, so that's probably not a lot of admins knows about vulnerabilities there, and that's why there's so much misconfigurations and holes in that. So yeah, it's a huge mess. That's where there is really easy to introduce hole in this environment. And that's all from me. Thank you. And if you have any question, please ask me.
I have a really quick question. I'm still thinking about the part where you mentioned the enrollee is able to supply the subject.
Yes.
I'm just thinking about the use case when you want it enabled. Like, what's the use case when non-admin user is able to provide the subject? Like, what's the use case?
There are use cases. I don't know about them, as I've never set up Active Directory, but what I was reading is used with some services, or can be used with some services, that some service want to authenticate as some user. If anybody knows better, definitely can answer this if they set up some environments. But
okay, so
there is.
You should have like a list of services you can impersonate.
Of
Okay.
course, like
Not
that's
to have it fully open, like
yeah, that's the
Oh,
problem. Like
then
definitely,
it's impersonation. Then it makes sense.
yeah,
Okay.
definitely you can configure it that not all domain users can enroll this certificate, but only a specific group. That would fix a lot of problems with that.
Yeah. Thank you. Understood.
Yeah.
So I read, I think a few months ago that Microsoft already deprecated the NTLM hashes inside the Active Directory. So will it help to prevent like multiple vulnerabilities or majority of the vulnerabilities currently in the stack, or there will be the problem like you said that the configurations are like 10 or 15 years
Yeah.
old and they will never like upgrade fully to the latest features or latest version of it. So what's the point of eradicating deprecating the NTLM in this case?
That's smart step, definitely, but most of the environments are using old Windows services, or servers, sorry, Windows servers, like not the newest one. So I think it would take years to fully deprecate or fully leave NTLM in the gravestones under the ashes. Yeah, even decades. Yeah, I think that's a smart step because there's a huge amount of vulnerabilities or attacks with NTLM. And other thing, NTLM is really weak hash. That's why you can crack it in few minutes with, for some user, complex passwords. Yes?
Manager approval of the certificate. How do you brute force them if it's enabled?
Like social engineering, or as there was, I don't remember the company, but some hackers got inside the company because they were spamming users to two-factor authenticate, like just to allow the login. So some things like that, I would say. Like there's no like special attack to brute force and approve this, but only with the human error, I would say.